This is Gemara Makkkos Daf Chof, and we're holding on Yud Testament Beis. 2 lines into the wide lines. As Baruch Hashem, we get ourselves back to our extra day ahead for all those that would like that extra day, knowing where the shir is. B'siyata Dishmai. And again, all the incredible zchusim, the unestimable koyach HaTorah should bring Tinok ben Miriam Ahuva complete refuah shalima. We're holding on the second wide line. Bai Rav Papa. Nokit le bekanya mai. He's carrying Meiser Sheni. And we're in the middle of discussing at what point do the mechitzos koltos. We ended with a shaila. You're at the entrance, the Pesach to Yerushalayim. You're outside, the basket's inside, the basket's outside, you're inside. We brought a pasuk, or Hashmi brought, either you or the basket inside. Now says the Gemara, what if the Meiser Sheni is on a stick and you're inside, but the Meiser Sheni is back on his stick and it's outside of the walls? What is the halacha? Says the Gemara, Teiku. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yechanan, Meiser Sheni me'masei chayavin alav. At what point is Meiser Sheni chayiv? What does that mean? Is one point is a person chayiv for eating Meiser Sheni outside of Yerushalayim? Misharo b'nei hachayma. From when it sees the face of the wall of Yerushalayim, it's inside the city, and then if it comes out and someone eats it, that is when there is Makkkos. My time, what's the reason? The Amar Kra. Lifnei Hashem lekecho teichalenu shana b'shana. Before Hashem, you got to eat each and every year, which is a mitzvah's asay of eating Meiser Sheni. Uksiv in the Torah says, Klosu chalecha b'sharecha. And the pasuk continues and says, before Hashem, you should eat it. Kolecha dekarinan bei lifnei Hashem lekecho teichalenu. Wherever it's called Lifnei Hashem Elokecha, whenever we can apply the second pasuk, says the Gemara, that's when what? Karinan be lo suchalecha b'sharecha v'cholecha d'loi karinan be Lifnei Hashem Elokecha d'loi karinan be lo suchalecha b'sharecha. So teaches the Gemara the two are dependent upon each other, and therefore, if it's not Yein Shalayim, and excuse me, at the point that Meiser Sheni is not yet in Yerushalayim, but becomes chayiv when it's ro pnei abayis, that is the point that there is the mitzvahs loisa say about eating it outside of Yerushalayim. Meisvei asked the Gemara of Yesi, Mer Kayin shall also be adei te'eina shel tevel. If a Kayin is eating a handful, he's holding, a fig. Amar, that's tevel, which of course the appropriate chumas and meises were not taken off. And Amar, he says, Teinazu, this fig, Trumasa, I'm sorry, no one can see the words. 2 lines to the bottom, Trumasa, the Uksa, the Oikets, the stem is Truma. Meiser Risha in Bitzvaina, in the northern part. Meiser Sheni is the southern part, Lidraima, and Vishnas Meiser Sheni. And it's a year that obligates in giving Meiser Sheni, and v'hu Yerushalayim, or it's a year Meiser Ani v'hu b'gvulin, and he's within the outskirts of Yerushalayim. And then what happens? Achla, he goes and he eats this teina. He goes and after he designates verbally all the different shumas and maisres, he goes and he eats it. What is the halacha? Says the Gemara, loike achas. There is one count of Makkkos that he is chayiv because he ate tevel, as Rashi says. So yitzia midei tevel b'kriyas shem zeh doesn't make it not tevel by what he did. V'ka'achal meiser rishon atavel l'chumas meiser v'kaver alav the tevel. But iser chuma dekachal is not. Why? Dakainu. When he dakainu. Let's leave it at that for a moment. So says the Gemara. So he's over in one Makkkos because he ate tevel because he didn't make chumas meiser. Continues the Gemara on the top line of Chaf Amud Aleph. But a case of zar shachla, if a zar would have eaten it, a non-koyin, the halacha would have been like shtayim. There would have been two malchus. One that it was tevel, and one that it was truma. The oiketz was truma. She'ilu b'tchila achla. Had a non-koyin eaten it right away, before any of the trumas and maasros were designated, einay loike ela achas. Then there would only be one malchus. So what's the kasha? Says the Gemara, there was a detail that maybe we glossed over. Where was he at this time? He was inside Yerushalayim when he made the trumais, and then he went and he ate the teina, and therefore that's the reason why there's no iser by eating meiser sheni. Ha bigvulin, and then like a shalosh, there would be 3 tavel, truma, and meiser sheni outside of Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, so what do we see? Even though it didn't see the walls, still there would be a chiyuv meiser sheni. So asks the Gemara, you, Rabbi Yochanan, just taught us. At what point is there a chiyuv meiser sheni? Only at the point that it's roya b'nei achayma. Says the Gemara, that's not true. Answers the Gemara, no, da'ili v'abkei. He brought it, it was roya b'nei achayma, and then he took it out. Says the Gemara, but wait, 5 lines down, yachimayla memra. What's the chiddush? Answers the Gemara, the chiddush is they brought the fruit into Yerushalayim when it was tevel. Meiser, Truma, nothing was done. And then he took it out of the city before doing Meiser Sheni. Then he said the whole designation that he said on the bottom of Amud Beis, because Savar, Matana Ishloi Hormu, Kimisha Hormu Damyan. And the Brisa, the Tana holds that why is there Malkus for eating Meiser Sheni? Because when you have Matana Ishloi Hormu, you didn't give the different Shumais and Meisers. It's as if they're already separated, and therefore it's as if it already went into Yerushalayim, and therefore that's the reason why you're going to be chayiv for Meiser Sheni. Says the Gemara, wait, v'savar Rav Yosi Matana Ishloi Hormu Kimishor Damyan. Does Rav Yosi really hold that? V'atanya, that itself is a Pran Rishim Yudayim Rishim Rav Yosi. Lo yinech l'beisham Yisrael. Peiros lo nigmru melachtan. They don't argue about peiros. That what? Are lo nigmru melachtan. They're not fully finished of Yerushalayim when they pass by Yerushalayim. Sheyiftu, that were redeemed. Meiser Sheni shalan v'yoichal. B'chol makom, you can redeem their Meiser Sheni and eat it where you want. So what's the machlokes beishami beisilov almanech liku al peiros shenigmru melachtan? They're fully complete. Ve'aver Yerushalayim. So what's the machlokes? Shebishami oimrim yachzer meiser sheni shalav yoch b'Yerushalayim. The meiser sheni has to be brought back to Yerushalayim. B'sel armin, no. Yiftev yocha b'chol makom shehu. You should redeem b'chol makom. Redeem it and eat it wherever you want. So Rav Yosi is quoting Beis Hillel, seemingly following Beis Hillel. So what's the problem? Visal gedaitach. And if you're going to tell me, Matan Ishloi Hormu Kimisha Hormu Damyan, Hakol Tahu Mechitzais, the Mechitzas Yerushalayim should have been calculated, even though there was no Afrasha. And therefore, seemingly Rav Yosi holds it's Kimisha Lo Hormu Damyan. And if that's the case, we're back to original Kasha with Meiser Sheni. Amarabba, mechitza lechol deraisa, mechitza likloi derabanan. It's 2 different levels. One is to eat, and one is to one is to be koiled. One is to consider it has the kedusha. Chaz rabanan is only kiisa be'eni be'tvilei, be'isa be'eni bet. It's only when it is be'en. Whereas be'tivlei, when it's not, when it's tevel, when you didn't take the trubas and meisris, loi gazer rabanan teretz, number 1. One more answer. Avina Amarkon denakale bekanya v'tiv shait Papa says Ravina, I'll tell you a different answer, is that it was Bekanios with a stick over your shoulder. And if that was the case, then that first Shaila that we started with today, that we were Papa at a Shaila, you're holding the stick, you're in Yerushalayim, but the stick and the Bikurim are outside. And Rav Papa wondered, what's the halacha? And the Gemara said, Teiku. Says Ravina, if this is the Mahalich to answer up Rav Yosi, then we would have an answer for Rav Papa, that it would be considered that as if you went into Yerushalayim, which of course is fascinating that the Gemara ends with a teikun of an aleph and says it on an beis, we'd have a teretz, but that's Ravina's teretz. We continue with the Mishnah on the first wide line, continuing cases of Isurim that have Makkkos. One in a form of mourning over someone who is nifter, rips out, makes a bald spot on his head. Hamakiv pe'asaraishai. He rounds the corners, he cuts off his payas. Or he rounds the corners and sebedis or v'amashchis pasaziknai. He destroys the corners. V'asayret srichatas alameis. He makes a cut on his flesh in a mourning over a dead person. Chayiv. He is obligated in Makkkos. Explains the Mishnah. Sarat Srita, if he makes a single cut in his flesh, Achas, Al Chamisha makes him over 5 dead people. Oy Chamisha, Chamish Srita is Al Mesa Achas, Chayiv Al Kolachas Vachas, each and every one is its own Isser. Al Aroish Shtayim. Someone rounds the corners of his head, he gets Makkkos twice, Achas Mikan, Achas Mikan, each side of his head. Ala zakin shtayim, if he removes the zakin, the beard, it's 2 isur mikan shtayim on each side. Excuse me. Ala zakin shtayim mikan and shtayim mikan. There's 2 corners of your head on each side. Va'achas milmata, one in the middle. Rav Eliezer oimer imnala kulan kachas. If he took them all off as once, eina chayav alachas. And famously says the Gemara, which maybe people are wondering, what do you mean? Are you allowed to take off your pace at some level? Yavada. But you cannot take it off bitar with a razor. Of course, that opens up the incredible Pandora's box. What is called a razor, the whole machlekes in shavers, etc. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, afilu loktoi b'maklet oi b'ritani chayav. We don't paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says even if you don't remove it with a tar, if you move it with a maklet or ritane, with a plane or other instruments, chayav, you're going to be chayav. So we're going to get back to the whole sigya of Peish and Mirza Hashem, but let's go through systematically. Says the Gemara, all different Yisur in the Mishnah Tana Rabbanan. Don't make a bald spot. I would have thought even if he made kerach, arba, v'chamish, krichos, chayav alachas, 4 or 5 bald spots, only chayav 1. Tamalei mar karcha, says the Torah. Don't make a bald spot. What is it? From the fact that it says karcha, explains the Gemara. From there we learn, l'chayav akol, karcha v'karcha, you're chayiv for each and every karcha, each and every bald spot, b'reisha. B'reisha matamaleimar. The fish and emerlois is going to do, because the Torah says, lois is going to do, you should not cut yourself, look, tzimu karcha b'ninechem, you should not make a bald spot in your eyes, the mace. Yachal, I would think, lo yechayiv, you're not only chayiv, elo, only al bein einayim belvad, between your eyes, when the rabbis call a roisho, let tamaleimar b'roisham. The rabbis call a roish being a bald spot at any point of your head, 5 lines from the bottom. Vein li elo b'koyanim, says the Gemara, only kanim shriben, cause of mitzvahs yiseiros. From the literal pasuk, only know this din by a kohen. Yisrael minayin, how do we know the din even applies by a yid? Nemer kan karcha. Never the halan karcha. Mal halan chayav akol karcha v'karcha. Chayav al roish kebin einayim. You're chayav in every pulse. You're chayav in your whole head, like between your eyes. Avkan Yisrael. Chayav akol karcha v'karcha. Chayav al roish kebin einayim. Mal halan ala meis. Avkan ala meis. So that's how we know you're chayiv each and every bald spot, and you're chayiv even by a yid. Says the Gemara, Hani arba v'chamish krichos hechidami. What is the case in which one made 4 or 5 bald spots? If you made it one after another. Ubechamesh asrois. And there were 5 different warnings between each time he made the bald spot, says Mar B'shit. So of course it's 5 different Isurim. What is the chiddush of telling me that you're obligated 4 or 5 times? That's absolutely bullshit. So we turn over to Chafam and Beis and says the Gemara Ela b'chad asra. Must be there's only one asra. So says Gemara, wait. So mima chayiv. So are you really chayiv 4 or 5? V'atanan. But we learned in Kedushin, etc. We're going to learn tomorrow's daf. No, sir. You wine the whole day in chayiv alachas. They told him I'll teach them multiple times throughout the day. Vushai said, then what? Chayiv al kol achas v'achas. So says the Gemara, it's all telling how many asrais. So what is our case that you're chayiv 4 or 5? Explains the Gemara like tzricha disach achamish etzbahis. He put cream to make a bald spot on his 5 fingers. V'simna, excuse me. The tzricha disach achamish etzbahis nasha. He put nasha, this cream, on his 5 fingers. And he put them simultaneously on his head at one moment, making 5 different bald spots. And this is considered 5 different malchus, because it's considered 5 different aveiros, and it's considered as if he had 5 different asrais, and therefore that's the case of the 5 malchus. Ask the Gemara of Kama Shir Karcha. What is the shear of a bald spot? The shear is that you see the skin underneath. It's the shear of a gris. Others say that the skin of the head is exposed. It's exposed. Says the Gemara. This has to do with this parentheses. Kitanoi kamashir karcha kigres. Now we come to a third shita. We're 10 lines down. The first line is Amar Rav Yehuda. Says Rav Yehuda bar Chaviva, there's really a 3-way machlokes. Chad Amar Kigris. V'chad Amar K'dei Mirosh. Those 2 opinions we've had. V'chad Amar Kishtei Sayros, the size of 2 hairs. And some say no, the third sheet is not Shtei Sayros, but the size of a hadasha, the size of a lentil, v'simanich, and I'll tell you a simin. Ba'heres kigris umachia b'chadasha. Ba'heres is a bean, and the healthy spot is hadasha. And this is a mishnah negayim. That also, you see the mishnah says bean and hadasha, and lentil. So too, by us, you switch the 2. Continues the Gemara, learning what is the minimum size of a bald spot. Tana. Ha'noitel mole pia zug b'shabes. Someone cuts off a scissor full of hair on Shabbos, chayiv. The kama male piazog. Rav Yehuda shtayim 2 hairs. Ay ve'atanya lekarcha shtayim. But we learned for a bald spot 2 hairs, which would imply that the shear on Shabbos is not the same. Ema b'chein lekarcha shtayim. Says the Gemara, Tanami Hacha, bring your raya, no to male piazog b'Shabbos chayiv akam male piazog shtayim. Rav Lazar Omer. Achas, if you take the white from the black, even 1. Famously, a man cannot bleak out the white hairs. Why? A man is not allowed to do womanly acts, and therefore, to pick out the white hairs from amongst the black hairs, that is a womanly act. It's an act of yipoy, of beauty. And therefore, that is not allowed ever. Nothing to do with Shabbos, the Isser of Lo Yilbash. We're about 20 lines down at the 2 dots. Says the Gemara, you round the corners of your head. The corners of the head means Seif Reisha, the extremities. What is that? What this means is, what this means is he makes even the temple behind there and the forehead, he makes a straight line cutting off all the corners of the head between the ear and the forehead. This is, we'll just turn over here, this area, this is going to be called the corner of the head. And this, of course, just to point out, this is the reason why cutting what we call payas, the sideburns, is very important, that it can't be too short, because that is the side of your head, and that's why it has to be at least a 2, probably maybe a 3, but definitely not, can't be shaved, can't be a 1. When it comes to cutting off payas, both the one who cuts it and the one that gets it both get malchus. Ask the Gemara, I don't understand. Are you going to tell me one who eats dates out of a sieve gets malchus? I don't understand. He's just eating the dates. So one who corners were cut didn't do anything. So why is he over? If I just sit here, so Rachman al-Tzan cuts with my payas, why am I over? Answers the Gemara, if someone says to you, Mani, whose opinion is this brisa? Whose opinion of this brisa? Rabbi Yehudi Damar, lav shein by Maisa, like in a love. So you're right, you didn't do a Maisa, but a love was done to you, says Malchus. Rav Amar b'makev atzmai v'divrei hakol is makis. Rav Ashi Amar b'misayeya v'divrei hakol. By you standing still, that's called misayeya. You're eating, you're allowing an avir to be done, and that's why there is Malchus. We'll finish with this. If you destroy the corners of your beard, what is that? The pointed ends of the beard. Again, exactly where are the corners that are forbidden to destroy is not so simple, but definitely the what we call the sideburns, definitely around the ear, and the general beard area is the area that you cannot cut with a razor. And we'll stop over here. I'll pick it from here. B'siyata dishmaya.